What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's video. I'm super excited for this one because it's a list I had to think about. The Nintendo Switch is, in my opinion, the best JRPG console that's ever existed. There are just so many incredible games on this console, and anytime I'm in the mood for a great JRPG, then this is typically the device I pick up. With the Direct this past week just giving us so many amazing new JRPGs to look forward to, I thought it'd be a good time to go over my top 20 favorite JRPGs on the Switch. I went with 20 for this list because there's just so many great games on this system. I could probably give 30 or 40 or even more, but for this one, we're sticking with 20. Let me know in the comments below what your favorites are. So with all that said, let's jump right into the games. All right, we are kicking things off with Ys 8. Now, I think that when it comes to moment-to-moment gameplay and pacing, Ys 8 is one of the greatest JRPGs on the Switch. The combat is fast and fluid, the story is engaging, and the game doesn't overstay its welcome. There's a lot of side activities and exploration you can do that will definitely provide a great and more lengthy experience, but if you just want to mainline the story, then this game is a nice, concise JRPG. This is actually the first Ys game I ever played, and I played it on the Switch. Once I picked it up, I just couldn't put it down. This game has actually been released on just about every platform at this point, but I think that it's the perfect fit for the Nintendo Switch. It runs great and looks incredible, especially on that OLED screen. If for whatever reason you haven't had a chance to play it yet, definitely give it a try. Ys 8 is a really, really great game. All right, moving on. Next up, I have Ni no Kuni. Now, I'm a huge Studio Ghibli fan, and once I found out Level 5 was working on a game with Studio Ghibli, I was definitely intrigued. Luckily, Ni no Kuni exceeded all my expectations and managed to pull on my heartstrings in the same way many of the classic movies do. I feel that this game does a lot of really interesting things with storytelling and gameplay that make for a super unique experience that really stands on its own. Gameplay wise, it reminds me of the Tales games. There's mechanics dropped in from some other great classics like Pokemon, for example, but overall, the story is what really shines here. The cities, the art style, the characters you meet along the way, they all come together to make for a really amazing and unforgettable experience. There's just nothing like Ni no Kuni out there, and I think it looks and runs really great on the Nintendo Switch. So give it a go if you haven't had the chance to yet. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is next up on the list, and this is a game that I recently had the itch to jump back into. I'm a huge Persona and SMT fan, and Tokyo Mirage Sessions feels very similar to those games in a lot of ways. Adding in the Fire Emblem crossover and the extremely unique concept, and we have a JRPG that is honestly completely unique and unlike anything else out there. In this one, you are in a modern day Tokyo and you're being wrapped up in a bunch of craziness with J-pop idols and the music industry in Japan, which I think is really interesting. The characters are great, and the way this game incorporates the different mechanics from SMT and Persona and Fire Emblem make for a really amazing game. This is one a ton of people missed out on, so if you're one of those people, then definitely check it out and give it a chance. It's not for everyone. It's definitely a very unique experience. It's all in Japanese. It does not have an English dub, so keep that in mind when going into it. But overall, I think it's worth it. It's a great game with a crossover that was just so incredibly unlikely, in my opinion. Next up is Triangle Strategy. I love strategy games. Fire Emblem is, of course, one of my favorites, and Triangle Strategy was kind of marketed as this tactical Game of Thrones-esque game where the story is a huge focus, being filled with tons of twists and turns to keep you on the edge of your seat. I will say that it did not disappoint. The story here is incredible. The story is not the only thing that shines here though. The moment-to-moment gameplay is also amazing. And to top it all off, it features that HD 2D art style, and in my opinion, it's one of the best implementations of it. There's a lot to love with Triangle Strategy, and if you really love a great story in your JRPGs, then this is one that you absolutely can't miss. There's a ton of reading, and the story, like I said before, is kind of the main focus here. So if that doesn't turn you off, please give Triangle Strategy a shot. I don't think you'll regret it. Final Fantasy X and X-2 are next up on the list, and I could easily put all the Final Fantasy games on here because the Switch is probably the best place to play basically every Final Fantasy game that ever existed. But if you caught my ranking list, then you know that 10 is my favorite. and I think it holds up incredibly well. It plays great on the Switch, and the game itself caters really well to portable play. I do think that this was the last really great classic style Final Fantasy game, and it's one I return to often. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite Final Fantasy game is on the Switch. I guess I could have cheated a bit and put the pixel remasters on here because those are also a great choice for the platform. But 10 is my favorite Final Fantasy game, and that's why it's right here on this list. Persona 5 Royal has everything I love in a JRPG. Great characters, an incredible story, innovative turn-based combat, and a world you can get absolutely lost in. I go back and forth a lot on what my top 3 or so JRPGs of all time are, but Persona 5 Royal never sits outside that top 3, and in fact, I think I can confidently say this is my all-time favorite game. There's something truly special about this one. It's not often I go back and replay a 100+ hour JRPG, but Persona 5 has pulled me in for several playthroughs, and I loved each and every one of them. As for the Switch version, it runs great. I've always thought of Persona as a more portable experience. Think Persona 3 on the PSP or Persona 4 Golden on the Vita and now 5 on the Switch. The game runs great, and it's truly a game that any fan of the genre just has to experience. Trust me, Persona 5 Royal is one of the best JRPGs ever made. Alright, so I might be cheating a bit here, but it's my list and I refuse to pick one game out of this series that is the best. Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3 are some of the best open world games on a portable platform, full stop. Monolith Soft truly understands the Switch hardware in ways many developers could only dream of. It's a miracle these games run on the Switch at all, to be honest, and I'm so glad they do because these are the best JRPGs exclusive to the Nintendo platform, and it's not really debatable in my opinion. If you're looking for the best story, I'm going with 1. The best characters, probably 2, and the best combat and gameplay systems, I'm gonna go with Xenoblade 3. I think all of them are great in their own way, and if you grab all 3, then you're in for hundreds and hundreds of hours of JRPG fun. The combat system is unique and original. The story is always so large in scale and over the top. The characters are really fun. I just love everything about these games. They are some of the best on the Nintendo Switch, so definitely do not miss these. Tales of Vesperia is one of my favorite Tales games, and it was the story and the characters that really made it special to me. It looks really great and shines on the Switch OLED especially. Tales of Vesperia boasts a beautiful, cel-shaded art style, giving it a nice, more timeless, anime-style look and feel, which I always love in my JRPGs. The character designs, the environments, the animations, everything is just so bright, colorful, and vibrant. It's a really incredible Tales game, and one that fans of the series I think are universally pretty high on. The definitive edition on the Switch includes additional content not present in the original Western release, such as new characters and story elements. This is definitely the best version of a great Tales game, so if you haven't played it, then you definitely need to. I honestly never thought I'd be putting NieR Automata on a Switch list because I honestly think that this port was probably a really huge undertaking, but it's a great port. I mean, this game plays great on the Switch. I actually really like having this one on the go, and for whatever reason, I just really like action games on a portable system. Is it absolutely the best place to play NieR Automata? I don't know. That depends on your preferences, but for me, this is a game that I bought and replayed on Switch, and it's one I'll probably come back to even more often now because it's a great portable game. I could go on and on about what makes NieR Automata great, but to sum it up quickly, the story is really unique and the combat is some of the best Platinum Games has ever done. The characters, the soundtrack, the sound design, the pacing, and the way the moment-to-moment gameplay keeps you on your toes by completely changing at any given moment make this an experience that is completely unique and special, and that's why it's on this list. I Am Setsuna is a game I completely associate with the Switch and I have great memories with. When the Switch launched, we were all looking for a great game to play that wasn't Breath of the Wild, and for me, that was I Am Setsuna. Don't get me wrong, I was completely obsessed with Breath of the Wild. I mean, I played it 24/7 it seemed like, but when I wanted a break and needed my JRPG itch scratched, the game that fit the bill was I Am Setsuna, and it fit it perfectly. This is a classic feeling JRPG with an amazing story and gameplay that pulls mechanics from a lot of the greats, but mainly reminds me of Chrono Trigger. The story at times gets really dark, and the writing is done in a way that makes it hard to put down. This is a somewhat hidden gem on Switch, and I think a lot of people overlook it. And if it wasn't for the launch of the Switch being so limited in options, I may have as well. But I'm really glad I didn't, because I Am Setsuna really sets this tone that is unmatched in my opinion. There's just so many great things that this game does. Does it innovate in incredibly crazy ways? No, it doesn't. But it takes a formula that I've loved and adored since I was a kid and brings it into a more modern package that I really enjoyed. It's just a really great game, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Bravely Default 2 is a kind of interesting game for me, and one that I think about a lot. I love the mechanics of the game. The Brave and Default turn-based mechanics are really unique and something that I really enjoy, and they make for some truly interesting encounters, especially the larger scale boss fights that could go on for what seems like hours if you really spend your time with them. But for me, the art style in this one is a huge miss. I love a JRPG with a great art style, but the whole chibi type character models with gigantic heads don't fit the high stakes kind of serious overtones that Bravely Default is known for. However, if you can get past that like I did, then you'll have one of the best modernized classic style JRPGs on the platform. If you like turn-based combat, messing with jobs and classes, customizing your party and all that fun stuff, and Bravely Default 2 checks all the boxes. I really hope the series keeps going because I've always been a huge fan of it. Give it a try if you haven't yet. Bravely Default 2 isn't for everyone, but it's a great JRPG. Star Ocean: The Second Story R is next up on the list. Star Ocean is a series is one that is a hit or miss for me. Some of the games I love and they're a ton of fun, while others completely miss the mark. It's honestly surprising how weirdly inconsistent this series is, but Second Story R is easily the best Star Ocean game, and it's not even close. I played a bit of the original and enjoyed my time with it back in the day, but this remake is just really special. They added some quality of life improvements. The art style is this unique take on the HD 2D art style that I've always enjoyed, but the story, characters, and gameplay are what hooks you in and makes this game very hard to put down. Star Ocean: The Second Story R is a ton of fun, and while it's out on other platforms, I got it on the Switch and it fits the console perfectly. If for whatever reason you missed out on this one, then be sure to give it a chance. Live Alive has been on a lot of my lists, and with good reason. It makes for a great JRPG in so many ways. I love the wide variety of different stories, all the settings, the art style. I could continue to go on and on about everything that is great about this game, but just know that this is easily one of the best JRPGs on the Switch. The way the game handles these smaller bite-sized stories is also especially great for portable play. Some of these stories are a couple of hours or less, but when combined, they make for a really amazing and cohesive experience. I think this is also a great example of game preservation, because I didn't know this game even existed, and I'd love to see more JRPGs like this get remade so fans of the genre can play great games they otherwise may not have had the chance to. Following Live Alive on this list is none other than Octopath Traveler 2. I could put 1 on here as well, but I think 2 just improves on everything that 1 did in such a significant way that if you're going to play an Octopath game, then it should be 2. Live Alive seems to have provided some inspiration to the Octopath concept, but instead of having each character's story be done completely separately, Octopath weaves things together much more tightly, and the game is much more traditional in the JRPG sense. The turn-based combat pulls from Bravely Default series in some ways, and the overall experience is just so remarkable. I also can't mention Octopath without mentioning the soundtrack. I mean, this is easily one of the best soundtracks in video games, period. It's so good. The first game had a great and super memorable soundtrack as well, but this one really is special. Play Octopath Traveler 2 if you haven't. This is an amazing JRPG. Next up, I have Dragon Quest XI S. Now, I love turn-based JRPGs. In fact, many of the games on this list are turn-based, but I also love more modern JRPGs as well. And how they've evolved over the years has kind of put some of my favorite classic mechanics on the bench. Luckily, Dragon Quest XI gives you the best of both worlds. This is a game that takes aspects of classic games and modernizes them just enough to have things feeling fresh and original, but pulls on our nostalgia at the same time. Some people knock the story for being generic, but I love it. The characters are great. The pacing, while it could use some improvement here and there, overall is really well done, especially for how long the game is. Did I mention you can play the entire game in 2D? If you really want that all classic JRPG feel with none of the modern touches, this game actually plays incredibly well in the 2D mode. I at first thought this was just going to be like this tacked on aspect of the game that was just there to kind of say they did it, but you can tell there's real love and effort that was put into that. This is one of the best games in the genre, and I'm really glad it's on the Switch. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is a hard game for sure, but I truly love it, and this is actually my favorite SMT game. If you haven't had the chance to check out my review of SMT 5 Vengeance, then please be sure to do so. Actually, prior to Vengeance, I might not have put it as my favorite SMT game, but with all the improvements that were made to the story and the overall experience, I can confidently say this is easily my favorite Shin Megami Tensei game. I love the enemy design, the challenge, the story, the combat. The combat in SMT5 is just so incredible. Some of these boss fights are truly challenging, and if you're looking for a JRPG that really requires you to think and put in the time and effort for success, then this game is for you. Vengeance actually got released on other platforms as well, but it plays just as well as the original did on the Switch. It's a great experience that you could easily pour hundreds of hours into. Fire Emblem Three Houses is the best Fire Emblem game on the Nintendo Switch, in my opinion. I love the shake up to the Fire Emblem formula and the focus on the character development and the different story paths. The replayability is a great factor, but I like everything the game has to offer. The story is one of my favorites in the whole series, and some of my all-time favorite Fire Emblem characters come from Three Houses. It does have some downsides here and there. Some people don't like the school and professor aspect of the game and prefer to just focus on combat. And for those of you that prefer that, I would recommend Engage instead. But for me, the way everything comes together and the replayability of Three Houses make it my favorite Fire Emblem game on the Switch. Next up is Trails to Azure. Now, the Trails in the Sky remake was announced at the Nintendo Direct, and it was by far my favorite announcement. I am so hyped for this. I just can't wait to play that, and I'm so happy it's coming to the Switch. But currently, my favorite Trails game in the series is Trails to Azure. I love the Crossbell arc, and Azure really does some amazing things with storytelling and gameplay. I think that this game actually takes the best aspects of the Trail series and builds on them in really creative ways, not to mention all the twists and turns you'll come across in the story. This is absolutely a game I picked up and could not put down until I finished it. Even the side content is so well implemented. I mean, top to bottom, this is as good as it gets when it comes to a JRPG. And that's why it's on this list. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is one of my all-time favorite Nintendo games. It's easily the best Paper Mario game, and the remake on the Switch is perfect. They don't change too much, so the game still feels as great as it ever did, but the upgrades visually are really well done. I remember loving this game when it first came out, but revisiting it not only brought back some great memories, but also just reminded me of how great Paper Mario games used to be. I liked Origami King. It was okay, but it just did not come close to hitting the same highs that Thousand Year Door did. The story is surprisingly good, and the interactive turn-based combat, I think, laid the groundwork for a lot of modern innovations in the genre today. If you missed out on the Thousand Year Door, or if it's still sitting in your backlog, this is your reminder to go play it. This is a great game, one that I think anyone should enjoy. All right, finally, I have Persona 4 Golden. This is a game that I played back on the Vita that reignited my love for JRPGs. I would still play them here and there and pick up the ones I knew I'd enjoy, but Persona 4 Golden reignited my JRPG obsession. I love this game so much, and it came at a time where I really needed something like this to get lost in. The story and the characters are really special, and the mystery aspect just adds another layer of fun to the overall experience. While I do think the overall better game is Persona 5 Royal, I will always have a special place in my heart for Persona 4. This is a comfort food game for me, and one I find myself replaying often. I do hope that they remake this game one day, especially after replaying Persona 3 with Persona 3 Reload and seeing just how well that was done. I would love for Persona 4 to get the same treatment. Anyway, that's it for my list of 20 JRPGs on the Switch. I myself can't wait for the Switch successor to get announced, and I have my fingers crossed for backwards compatibility because I've built quite the JRPG collection on this console. In my opinion, the Switch is easily the best JRPG platform out there, and just looking through all the really amazing games the Switch has to offer, I could easily add 20 more games to this list. Please be sure to let me know in the comments below what your favorite JRPGs are on the Switch. Did you like the Nintendo Direct? Drop your favorite announcement below. Anyway, that's it from me in this one. So until next time, I'm out.